Hello class, today is Monday 6/29/2020. It is 7 p.m. We're going to start the class with the lecture. So I open Canvas and I'm going to go to today's topic, which is functions and while statement, for statement, if statement. We cover all that one. But we're going to start with function, Python function. Let me open today's agenda. There's a couple of participants. Hopefully everybody will join in soon. We're going to start with today's topic, Python functions. As you know, Python is both functional programming and object-oriented programming, which means that it supports a functional, like other programming languages like C, Java, C++, and other ones. They both support functional, but at the same time, like C++ and Java, provide also object-oriented programming language. So Python is similar to like C++, in some ways similar to Java, that supports object-oriented concept of programming, as well as functional programming, similar to like a C programming language, if you're familiar with C. And both of these paradigm are supported in Python, and Python just allow you to define functions and use it. In order to do that one, I'm going to go over a few terminologies so you understand the differences. When do you use the word function? When do you use the word method? And when do you use call? When do you use invocation or invoke? These concepts are not new. From day one, when programming languages were used with C, C++, Java, Python, Ada, Fortran, assembly programming was there. Some people call it function programming. Some people call it procedure programming language because like Pascal and other programming like PL/SQL, and you would write a function in the name of like calling it procedure. In Python, you could call it function, and JavaScript, Java, C, everything else, you call it function. And then the reason that it is important to know the difference is that when you are in the object-oriented programming languages, like C++ or Java, you cannot use the word function when you mean the method. So the names, the terminology of object-oriented is different. But Python supports both of them. So if you just say the word function, synonyms to the word method, people understand the context that you're using it. So in that sense, when we go to Python interpreter, when we look at the name of the functions, and then Python's, they define it, the type of them as method, because these are working on based on the object. Whenever you work on an object and a class, an object, everything, you're looking at a method, because you're looking at object-oriented terminology. But if you're looking for a pure C language or pure Pascal or some other one, Ada, Fortran, any other languages, then you're looking at function programming. And then Python supports both of them, as I said so many times now. So the word, if you look at regular programming like function programming, the function is used for the defining a function. And then if you're looking at object-oriented, method is used. If you call a function, which means you want to execute it, the word is called. And then in functional programming. In object-oriented programming, that's called invoke, to call it. And then parameter passing is the same thing. The parameters that are passed on the functional programming, it is just called parameters in either case. And the values that are passed at some point, how many a number of arguments are they passed on, it is not called parameters, it's called arguments. And then the value to the arguments or the either position passed by position or by reference or by value or by address, however you call it. Sometimes depending on programming language, there are different terminologies used. For Python, we use position parameters and also keyword parameters. So either you're passing it by a position or by certain keywords that we will go through it. This week, I'm going to cover function in details, and also I'm going to go through a number of built-in functions and standard function that comes with Python standard libraries, and then in addition, what user-defined functions we will write it. So functions by default in every programming language, if you're familiar with C, for example, a string copy or let's say a scanf or printf, all of these ones are defined in the standard io.h already, so you are using it. It's built-in functions. In Python, as you know, that print statement is a function. The print statement is a function. When you are loading math modules, you're using a number of functions. The min function, the max function, all of these ones that are there, they're defined already by the system, by the standard libraries that comes with default installation of Python, for example. And then the user defines, or the function, as you know, the name user define is the function that you're writing it yourself as a user, as a developer. You're creating those functions. So there's two types of functions you could write. One is that the system already has, they're called system defined function or built-in function, or function that is already standard part of the interpreter or the compiler, depending on whether you're writing Python or you're writing like a compiled language like C or Java or C++. Those ones are basically compiled languages. Python is a scripting language. It's called interpreter because every line of code, it gets interpreted before it gets executed. On the other hand, a compiled language, the whole source code gets compiled, gets created an object file, and the object file gets linked with the linker, and then creates assembly code for it, and then all of a sudden you have the executable link format or a .exec file on Windows, for example. And then executable link format is on Unix format. So you get the executable and then you run it. In Python, when you have the interpreter, when you just say the first line shebang Python, and then you just have the Python code, and Python interpreter automatically reads the source code and says, okay, I'm going to execute the first line. Is that a valid statement? Oh, it's using import math. And oh yeah, that's a valid statement. Math is a standard library. But if you say import numpy, and that's not part of the standard library, it will not load it. And then right away, it just says, you need to have this module. I don't understand what is numpy. But then you go on the pip, install it, and then you do import numpy. Now it's part of the additional modules. Similar to, like, for example, if you write a function, say my max, and then when you just execute it, Python doesn't know what is my max. But if you write a function called my max and you define it, when you invoke it, now it works. So anything that is not defined, you have to write it. That's user defined. Remote procedure calls. Okay, so parameter passing, the scope of the function. Hi.
Oh, sorry, I was talking to someone.
Okay. You guys seeing my, I see that 10 people are there. You guys are seeing my screen already, right? Everybody's fine with it? Hello?
Yeah, we see it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, thank you. I just want to confirm, make sure that I'm not talking to myself. Thank you. So the scope of the functions, if you look at the scope of the function, sometimes functions, when you creating a variable, the variable is local to that function. So what is a function first to begin with? A function is a small section of codes that you write once and then you reuse it many times. So in order to run a block of codes, you tell the system to store that block of code into this program or into memory, and then later on when I call it, I just want to repeat the same work. I don't want to write for the same 5 line or 20 lines or 10 lines that is I'm writing a function. Let's say my function is called function 1. I don't want to just rewrite it every time I need to use that method or that function. So in order to do that one, I just write it once, I save it with a name, and then the word is used as define. So def for define functions. And when we write the function, basically we're telling it to just store it now, and then when I invoke it or call it, and the function programming, you say call it, then at that time you just use it. And then if you're using the invoke, you're saying that when I invoke it in object-oriented concept. But because Python supports both of them, you can use that terminology interchangeably. So we're gonna discuss remote procedure calls and then versus remote method invocation. In programming languages, whenever you write program A and B and C, all of a sudden they have a standard library, and that the standard library for, let's say, is part of math function that has modules called math. And then inside there, you have power function, you have a square root function, you have the absolute value, you have the log of something. There's a logarithm of 2, and then cosine, sine. All those functions that are written in there, it returns some values. Function always returns some values. So when you do it, sometimes it's local to that computer that you're using. Sometimes it's on the remote server. So the mechanism that when you're doing it, from between the computers, like TCP/IP on the network, allows you to do transmission control protocol, internet protocol. That protocol versus UDP, with this user datagram protocol, is a kind of like a layer on the OSI model that allows you to do packet transfer between two computers, right? So it's either TCP protocol or UDP protocol. If it's TCP protocol, it's connection oriented, which means you log into a server. Once your connection is established, whether you do it through a FTP server, a SSH server, or some application that you're authenticating through the web or something, you are automatically logging in with authentication. So the authentication reads your identity. It says, okay, this person has a valid authentication. Now a connection between you and the remote server, as a client yourself in the remote server, the connection is established. That's why TCP is called connection-oriented protocols. So now your connection is done. If you just want to transfer a file between your computer to the remote server, as soon as you upload it or download it, when you're doing SCOPY or SSH or FTP or a secure copy, or just do wget or whatever command you do, at that time it is using the TCP protocols to just go say, oh, this IP has this header, and this is the IP address of this machine, and that's that one. So now I'm going to bring this file into a smaller package, and I'm going to transfer it between the two computers. So then after the packets or smaller section, it does it. But then on the other hand, you have also UDP, which is user datagram protocol, that, like, for example, you send a text message. using your phone. So your phone and your friend peers that you're sending a text message, they're receiving the message, but it's just a small text, right? So there's no authentication. You don't connect to the other person login name. All you have is a phone number, and that phone number is like the IP address of the other machine. So, since you're doing it, but it is using a UDP, user datagram protocol, and UDP is connectionless. You are not making authentication. You're not establishing a connection like through hard cable, anything, or through the TCP authentication. You're just sending the packet. It goes to the UDP through UDP, user datagram protocol. It sends it to the a station of the providers, whether it's Frontier, Amazon, not Amazon, AT&T or whatever company. It just goes there, and then from there, it just sends it back to the destination address. So when you're doing remote procedure calls, on the other hand, this is all done through RPC. You have to have a connection first, and then the connection is done through the RPC is connection through TCP. To TCP, so it makes a connection, and then the name of the function you call it. Let's say on the function you're trying to calculate something on the remote server, which provide you like a math function or MATLAB or whatever you call it, the graphic image that you're calling to get it from a web server, Google Map or something. When you're making that call on the remote server, in functional programming is called remote procedure calls. Procedure is the name of the function, or remote function calls. Remote procedure calls, that's a term that you have been using, you might be using it so often, but on the new technology where is Java, C++, object-oriented programming of Python, everything, the word is now remote method invocation. So the remote is exactly remote, procedure becomes method on object-oriented, and call becomes invoke. So if somebody says, do you know what RMI stand for? You say, yeah, because I know what RPC stand for. Or somebody says what RPC stand for, then you know, yeah, I know what RMI stand for. And they all connect through some ports. So the RMI port, let's say by default, most applications, they define the RMI port to be 1099. So on the server that you connect, you go through the 1099 port. You can also change that port by your application and configure it to 1095 or something, or 20 something. That doesn't matter, the RMI port. But you're connecting through TCP, and you're reading the data through RMI calls for that functions that you make the call, okay? So try to understand these two differences. It's very much used everywhere. People say, oh, I'm doing this one, I don't know what RMI stand for or something. It's good to know. In addition, we cover the following. And so we're gonna do idle running, and then also we're gonna do PyCharm. I'm going to do a quick demo on the idle and PyCharms today, and I will show you how you can download it and everything. But I actually will test that one on a new PC, install a version of PyCharm, community version, so then I could just have the video available for you to do it, because I had already installed it on my previous semester on this machine that I'm using, and then it doesn't make sense for you to just see the same thing, not exactly know that, okay, at this part it was already installed, so the professor did not install it. What if I just get this error? So I'm going to do the whole thing on a video, and then I will record it and I'll make it available for you on the class Canvas portal page. And then running Python from the command line, we have been doing it. Every time we do these steps, we're gonna just repeat some of these topics. I did not remove the topics for variable, statement, and condition, if statement, other ones. I added more to it because every time, like when we talk about these kind of things, let's say for if statement, we're going to just at some point when we go to the activities, we're going to experience those ones that we will have to test it. We're not going to just say, okay, we forget about if statement. We used it Monday, we might use it again today. And if we don't use it, we're going to use the for statement and while statement for sure. So today we're going to learn also looping. And the looping is part of the three main part of a program. If you recall, a program has three things, three main parts. One part is sequencing, which means what order you write your code. Line number one has something, line number two, and so on. That's the sequence of steps that you want to do. Then that's the next one was selection. Selection is like conditioning. So you, based on certain condition, you check something. That's your if statement, case statement, and other conditioning for selection, while statement, and so on. And then there's iteration, which is all the looping. Iteration is for statement, while statement, and any other languages like until, do loop that you do. In this course, we're going to do a lot of these throughout the semester. So we're going to discuss for statement, while statement. I'm also going to discuss list data structure because on your assignment, I noticed that one of the assignment which might be due this coming Wednesday, it is using list. So I want to make sure that you understand list. It is a pretty simple assignment. All the assignment that is up to chapter 4 or pretty simple one-page assignment. You should be able to do it in 20 to maybe half an hour maximum. If you're very good, you should be able to do it with 20 minutes. If you're kind of like maybe learning this one, the first language, maybe it should take you an hour if you follow the lectures and try to read the books and everything. Other than that, if it takes you longer, maybe you should judge yourself saying, okay, what part do you have missed so far? Didn't you understand if statement? Didn't you understand variables? How do you use help function? How do you do this? And then every one of them that you missed, if you just go on the videos, there's a lot of information on the modules that I posted. So you can get the answer to your question, and then it should be good. And by the end of the semester, some of these concepts and terminologies and writing a Python script should be almost piece of cake for you. Not that it should be like definitely piece of cake for every line or every function that you do, but at least it should be much smoother than when you started the class. That's what I'm saying. So the if statement in general, we talk all about all that one. So today we're gonna do for sure these three, and then in addition, whatever we covered here, including PyCharm and IDLE and other ones, we're gonna expand on those ones. The py4e.com, your textbook, has a lot of nice videos and a lot of nice training. You should follow that one. So if I just go, for example, py4e.com, your instructor that wrote this book, it actually is very good, Richard, and then has a lot of good videos. Under this, you could just listen to the ones that you missed, and then under my lectures also follow that one. So let's say, for example, we're covering function. You should go to a function here, and then these two videos, you should listen to it. And it's going to explain, in addition to what I'm covering, you should go through them. It actually does really good job for it. And then it defines function, for example, say, look at this, say the stored and reused. So you have a building block of codes, you are defining it, and then you use it. And I'll just show you examples of it. But I'm showing you this because you should be following these ones all along throughout the semester. That way, when you come back next week, when we cover something, you're already having some reading. One of the students was asking, saying that what the chapters should I be reading, or what chapters should I be reading ahead, and what chapters I should be reading after? That's a very good question. But some of it, if you look at the course modules, it is right here. I'm just giving you topic by topic as we go on the agenda. And as well, if you go to the modules, on the module section, I break it out to assignment statement, videos, lectures, and all the books, readings, everything online, the things that I'm talking about, like installation of software is here. So you should not be missing anything. If you're looking for the reading, look at the number of videos that are available here to listen. So for each chapters, I have videos there, whether I did it myself or there's videos of someone who did a great job, and we thought that this is a good thing to just post it. We put it there for you. And then in addition, for example, reading, I highlighted all the things that you should be reading for this topic on that lecture. One thing that I wanted to talk about the assignment, right? So the assignment, if I look at the assignment just here under the navigation, under the assignment tab, so assignment, it's kind of a little bit hard because when I explain something and then there's not all the student comes in, right now I see 11, but with me, that's only 10 people out of the 15 that are registered. So some people do not participate, and that makes it harder for us to just communicate. When I see sometimes the assignments are not kind of done the structure that I asked to do. For example, I say, put this one on a .py file, and people are still sending me text file for it. And if I just say, send this one in a text file, people send me image files for it. And then if I ask you for image file, it should be only an image file. Sometimes that kind of information, you should look at the number of the options that is there. I could restrict the option to not, put any files. From now on, I'm going to restrict it to only accept .py, because moving forward, none of the assignment should be done as text file or image file. And so when I restricted .py, but please make sure that you run your Python programs on your computer and test it, and make sure it is running, validated. Because if I run it and I just see one line of code on the Python apprentice statement, when that should be like 10 or 20 lines or 5 lines of code, obviously you didn't understand what I was asking, you didn't do the work, so it is hard to grade that one. It's just one print statement when there's no question saying that, how do you print this, right? It is a set of questions, and say, write this program to calculate these numbers. And then if I just, for example, for paper, scissor, rock, paper, scissor, paper, scissor, that one, if you just look at that program, if you just have like 2 lines or 1 line, that's not the answer to that question. Make sure that you're indenting it correctly, make sure your program works, submit it through the assignment tools. Do not submit it through emails. And it's okay if you have a question, but sometimes your question are so specific to yourself that you can answer yourself only. For example, you say, when I was doing this, I could not do this. And then I don't know what you were doing this, what was this. You didn't define what was this. So I just say, well, in this situation, maybe you could show me at the lab time. I could help you specific to that one. Or sometimes you ask me the same question on one email. For one assignment, I have 15 people in the class. I should have 15 answers, but I'm getting 80. And then for me to open 80 emails every time, and they are not in the right zip file, the right .python file format, it takes for hours to just grade the assignments. So it's not fair to your instructor as well as yourself. If you take this class and you move on to the next class is not going to just grade it. As soon as they see that thing, it says already I explained on the syllabus that you will lose 50% of the grade because you did not submit it right. And then since your code doesn't work, I'm not going to give you any points on it. So that kind of things, I don't want to do that. And this time I was very generous for giving everybody the maximum credit that they should have added. I did not look at the naming convention, the labeling, or how you or passing this assignment as text file, as .py file, as image file, and then all that information is already on the course syllabus I mentioned to say when you submit assignment how it should be done. And next time, if you just submit the same thing and you just did not follow the lecture and you did not follow the video, you just send it through emails, I will not either grade it and then as if I never received it, or I will just say correct it, and then if it is past the due date, you will get this credit for the passing late. At this time, some of the assignment that was submitted late, I did not discredit as much as I had put it on the syllabus. But moving forward on next assignment, please be on time. Make sure you're done on time, and it's not hard. Like for example, if I look at any of the assignment and look at this assignment page, if you come in here, most likely I put them all in that order. Let me make this screen a little bit bigger. Okay, so if you look at this assignment here, June 29, this was one. June 24, that's already closed. So today, this one was due. And if you look at the assignment here, it says create a Python script called assignment this. So all I'm saying is just go ahead and name it this and your last name. And if you still send me something with without this information .py, you just say assignment underscore chapter 203.py. That's not going to work because 2 or 3 students are going to send it to me. Then every time I download it, I just override the other student's name. So it's not going to be good because I don't know which one is assignment of whom. So when you say save it with your last name, that's going to distinguish from the other one. So I could have it multiple copies of it. And if I just show you my command prompt, when I download them, to look at them, to run them and everything. So I'm just going here on download page. And then right here, look at the .py files, the directory, new py, this one, that many files are being submitted. So for some of the users are giving the extension there is very meaningful. But if somebody just does not give you that name, it just basically override it. And then, so I just make directories of these ones and then their new text. So the new text are these ones that are submitted for the text. And if somebody submitted the same text file twice, and then it will be a problem because look at the size of this one is different, but it was submitted this. I don't know which one is, this one is number 2, and number 2 of this one, and number 2 of that one, they're 2 different sizes. So sometimes like that, it could be a problem. And then on top of it, in here, as I do download them, like all these PNG files, right? the naming is kind of a little bit different. So it should be, first of all, even a PNG file, you could have just cut and pasted, um, and then just capture it that way in a text file or something, send it to me. And because sometimes these ones it takes forever to download. Um, we should not ask for the PNG files at all. I did not put it on the lecture, but maybe the documentation says that you have to do this one on the assignment for PNG. And now, since it's already submitted, I'll just change it for next semester, for next sessions. So the assignments, when you do that one, please make sure that you're submitting it .py file. And right now, all the ones that are on the new Pi, it's already there. So we just do that one. And you can see that there's 26 of them just with .py, and some other ones .text and other ones. So it adds up with only 15 students submitting assignments. And then sometimes when assignments is not asked for being graded, please don't submit that one. If I just say this one doesn't have a due date, some people even did the exercise. So if you look at here on the home page under the assignment, some of them are say like exercise. Those are lab activities that you should do it. The one that are saying that has a due date, those are the one that is something that you need to do. So don't just submit this or that. These are all exercise. And then when we go to the exercise, those are for you to do the exercise so you understand each one of them, how to answer the question. Even if you did, some of you did submit it and I graded for it, but the grade is not actually going to be posted on the grading system because those are exercise. The fact that I said 50 out of 50 or 20 out of 20, that means you did a great job. Continue doing that great job because these exercises is going to help you do your assignment better and your midterm and final, and you just learn the class much better if you go through all of these exercises. So the exercise, please don't submit exercises. That's only for lab activity. And assignments that has due date, notice that recently, Sunday actually, I updated the assignments because some of these chapters were so small, so easy to do. So I put 2 of them on one day. Like if you look at the chapter 2 of 2, this one was not originally assigned, but if you look at it, it says create an assignment. Obviously the name, you just name it that way. And then what does that do? It's just basically asking information, say enter these values, and then once it puts enter these values, then some of you already did it, but unfortunately the ones that did it on these arguments that they are expecting it, they just say enter and the link with height. This is good, but if you do not tell the user, don't put commas or spaces, this is assuming that, well, I have this one as the same value. You just cut and paste it and put a print statement. That is not going to be a good way of programming it. You have to think outside of the box. Yeah, the instructor asked me on this one, but what if the end user is going to type in 15, 15, 12? Or what if they just pass in 2 arguments, even though I asked it for 3 arguments and the user did not read it and just says, okay, linked with, and I'm going to do that. So as soon as the user did not provide it, your program should do some data validation. With this one, I did not took any points in terms of, oh, I have to lose, you have to lose 20 points or 15 points or something. I only took 5 points out for not checking for validation. But in the future classes, if you don't do data validation, and then the person that is running is not a programmer or it's not yourself, It's even if your instructor runs it and he does not give the same input, your program should not bomb out and fail, right? So every time you write a program, it should work in this regard to who runs it. And then your expected values are not given as input. You should tell the user, say, sorry, go back to your while statement and check for the data validation. And say, I was expecting 3 digits, you put a comma. And instead of failing, just say that I'm expecting 3 with the spaces. And then that way they understand how to enter the value. Because if you look at a calculator, when you use it, your iPhone or something, the end user may not know how they do it, but all they do is they provide a button. No matter what button the person presses, it just comes out with some either working or not working. If it doesn't work, it is not going to just fail to say now the program failed, I cannot get back to it. So the program itself should be looping to say that that's not the input I'm looking for. So we talked about that an assignment. I think you should be clear on that one now. Let's go back to the modules. And while I'm opening this one, I'm going to open up a couple of, so let's go with idle first. And if you look at the idle, for example, here, idle 3.8 is there, and then idle 3.7, because I installed both of them. So I'm going to use that 3.8 there. So idle is almost similar to IDE, but it's not a fully IDE. It's integrated development. What is it? LE is learning environment or something. So that option that it gives you is, let's see what is about help on idle help. IDLE is a Python integrated development learning environment. Exactly. So it's an integrated development learning environment, and it is basically give you an easier way to, so you can do Python interactivity. As you can see, the only difference between this idle and this one, if I'm right here on the command prompt, and the only difference is on one of them, I have a menu, on the other one I don't. So on the idle, if I just go here Python, it is just going to drop me to the same prompt, 3.8, and from here on I have all the codes. But here I don't have a command prompt, I mean a menu. There's no menu for me to do this. So if I just type in help here, this one will just have similar. Last time, remember, the for statement was not working with idle here, but here this one would work with for statement. So there's some difference in terms of what idle can give you and what cannot do it. That one is just something that when you use it over time, you will know. For example, if I do something if statement here, if a statement, it will do the same thing as do that. But somehow the for statement inside here, it says squeeze text 59 lines. Somehow it does not put the value of where in the for statement supposed to give you the syntax. And then it has more lines. And maybe we could just maximize this one and then do a for statement. It's still another thing, because somehow the for statement has a lot more information here that is printed, and this idle is not doing it on a window. Maybe there's an option for the size of let's see if on the size you can increase it. Listen, files, save, print, window, edit. Expand word. shop surrounding. I'll look into that one to see maybe view last restart or something. If there's something on the idle configuration that you have to enable to just allow multiple lines to be posted. So if the line is not that big, it will just display it. If let's say I type in modules, and modules is a long listing, but is one line at a time, is still displayed. The for statement is something else to do with the idle itself. I'll look into that one and see why idle doesn't show the for statement output and there within this. So this is a longer list, but it's just one line at a time. All the modules are displayed. So it is not the view in terms of the managing it. So now you could see the advantage of idle. It has these menu, file, edit, shell, which means I can open a new file, and then just write a Python function. Since we are discussing Python function, for statement, while statement, looping, I'll show you a couple of other programs to do the same thing. So in order to do that one, let's just do start with for statement, for example, or a while statement. Let's do with a while statement. So since I'm right here, I could exit out of this one by pressing enter. Now I'm inside here. So if I just say a for statement without checking the syntax, I could say, let's create a student, a class, for example. We say class is equal, and let's just give a number of classes. We just say classes is equal, I'm gonna do a number of classes that I'm teaching, like CIS-012. And since there's a multiple section, I don't care at this time, CS-018. That's a computer science 018 Unix scripting that I taught in the spring. And then the next one is CIS-012 again. Since this is a list allows duplicate entries. So I could have on index of 0, CIS-012, and this would be my fall. I'm not going to distinguish them yet by names. I'm going to just create them by variable like that, right? By exact name, because it's a list. If it was a set, it will not allow me to create duplicate entries. But because it's a list, then I just can have multiple entries on the same thing. So let's say I'm going to do one again, CIS. CIS, I'm going to put this one as lowercase in fall. And then I'm having another class of the same thing in fall, CIS-012. So this is that. And then let's say in the spring, I teach CIS-040, which is Unix programming with that actually is kind of like doing everything with Unix system administration kind of things, and Unix certification, Unix Solaris and Linux and Windows, not Windows actually, Macs and everything with related to Unix. So that, let's say just I have those lists in there. I created that class. Now if I say type of classes, that one is a list, because this is basically a list. If I want to just print out the value of them, I could do a number of ways. Let's say I want to print it out. I say print classes. This is, I could just say classes. That would do the same thing. If I want to do classes sub 0, which is index of first class, it will just say CIS-12, right? And then if I just do the same thing with classes of 1, the index of 1, that would be CS-018. And then, so now classes class is the thing is white on the background is killing my eyes already. So let me switch this one to not use the interactivity. I'm using this one. So let me maximize this screen. And then here I'm going to press enter here. And then clear my screen. Remember the clear screen? I said import OS and then os.system and then do a clear screen command. So that did clear screen, but at this time, let me just go back to Python here. And instead of just redefining that one, let's just do edit, copy, and then that one, I already wrote that list here. I'm gonna just put it here. So we could just reuse it, edit, paste. It did not come through the copy. Okay, so I'm going to just define it here again. Classes is equal, and then the list, you just say list and then the name, CIS-012, and then comma, CS-018, comma, and then these are values for it. So, and then CIS 012 summer, and then CIS-012 fall, and then another one CIS-012. So the reason I'm just giving it same name exactly, that unless you can define them and you can modify them. So now I say, what is this list? What is that one? Classes that I just created. It's a class that is of type list, right? So now what are the methods that I can execute on this list? You just say dir classes and it will give you a list of them. For example, if I want to just add to this CIS 14, so if I just say classes right here, and then I want to just insert something right here, and then I could say classes and then dot. Since this is both allowing you object-oriented method of programming as well as functional, in this case, these are the methods that are available: copy, insert, append. So I could do append, meaning that add at the end, append, right? Append at the end of it, I want to just add another class called CIS-040. So this one will be added. Now if I just print out classes, notice that it just added to the end of it. So and now if I want to just remove something out of it, if I want to just do, so when we were talking about function in this case, I'm using classes.append. This is a method kind of version of it, because I say that the object name dot append, the method name, and then the parameter to the append. In this case, the argument to it is passed on to that value to append to it. Okay, and so could I just add more to it? Yes. Could I just remove it? So if I just want to remove that one, and instead of append, I could just say remove. Now I print out the same classes, it's gone. Now if I want to just append that one again, and I want to just add it to the first line, right here, the first thing. So now I just have to provide an index where I want to insert it. 0 means before the CIS-12. So if I do that one, it just says append does not allow the things, right? So that this is not a method that would do it. So if I say help append, class says dot append, and then look at that one, it just says that the argument could be a list, but it does not require an index. So for that one, I have to use insert. And I want to insert something at the very beginning, right? So right here, if I just look at it, it says append takes exactly one argument. Okay, so one argument, that this one argument could be a list or it could be a tuple that still could be inserted. So in order to do that first one here, and instead of append, I'm going to use the insert. And now insert did it, classes printed, it just puts the IS040 first. And now if I want to just do another, these are built-in functions, right? So when we're talking about functions, in everything that you use, whether you use math modules, random modules, Pynum, let's say tuples, a string, boolean, each one of these objects, they have a required methods. Those methods that are available to you, they are called built-in method. So if I just want to use a function called clear screen, I could not say classes dot clear screen, right? There's no, there's a function called clear right here. It should be somewhere here. Sort, reverse, right here, clear, which means that if I want to clean up this classes, I could do this and it just delete everything from it. So now if I just say classes, it's just empty list, right? So now if I just want to just do the same thing again, I could do this also, say classes dot extend. So I don't have to, I could do this. I could already did that one, right? But I could also say classes, for example, now I go to classes here. I could just say classes dot copy, and then just copy it to a C1, C list, a classes list, okay? So if I just do this, copy this, let's see if there's a copy and classes, C1, C1 classes. Okay, so there's a S missing here, that's why. C1, and if I just say print CL for a list, and then I just do it as a list, is just a copy of the object that is there. So ID of classes is just going to be that number, and ID of CL is that the same number. No, it's a different ID number because we made a copy of it. So if we say type of classes, type of CL, you can see that one is a built-in function or method, the other one is called a list. So that copy was not duplicated there. That's why when you say print CL, it just says this is a method of copy of this, right? So if I just want to get that one from classes and assign it to this as another one, reverse sort, index, extend, count, and then the copy. So let's see, help classes dot copy. Copy method of built-in list instance, return a shallow copy of the list. So this is just return a copy of it. C2 is equal classes dot copy C2, and then print C2 type C2. This just makes a copy of it as built-in functions, but the data type and other ones are going to be different from the original one. So if I just delete C2 and CL, and let's see, and dir of CL to see CL is there. So delete CL. Yeah, so now it's gone. I could say classes there, and then I could get some of these values like index of it, right? So if I just want to extend it, I could count a number of objects that are there, classes dot count, and now I just have to say how many of CIS-012 are there. This one is going to say 3 of them, 1, 2, 3. So dot count is there. If you just don't pass argument, it just says it needs exactly one argument, right? So if I just say type classes dot count, notice that this one it says it's a method built-in function, but it returns the number of arguments to it. So if I look at this count and I put CIS 040, it's going to say 0 because I just type in these one in lowercase. And if still that's not there, classes, and then 040 is not there, but CIS 018 is there. So CIS 018, that will show one CIS, not CIS, CS. CS 018 will show one, but lowercase one character will show 0 because that is exactly how it does the count there. So let's say look at the dir of classes, and we want to use like the pop command. So we already inserted, let's say we want to do classes. Whenever you pop, if you don't provide an index on classes.pop, it will just take out the last one from it. So now if I just do classes, it removes from the top of the list. So and then this one, if I want to just remove this first one, let's see if I just do this, there's a remove command. Yeah, remove and then by index. So I could say remove, and instead of popping it, I say only take the number 1, index number 1, then I could just say CS-018, that will just remove that one. Because this way you already said it, what do you want to do. And if you want to do reverse the order of this or sort it, you just say dot sort, and then that will sort it. But again, the sort orders that is there, when you do it, you have to store it on a new values, and then you get the new sorted value. So like if you say sorted class is equal that, then you say print sorted class, then it's none. Actually, it did not do anything with the sorted class. So it is on the fly on the thing. You cannot just get this value assigned to something else. And then let's see if we go reverse of it, reverse, and then the same thing with the reverse. So type, I'm sorry, help classes dot reverse. Okay, reverse and place a method of built-in function. So this one. So if I just have some numbers, let's say the class is actually, this one was not a good example because all of them were uppercase and lowercase or combination of the same word. So if you say L is equal 1, 5, and 6, 2, 10, 55, and then 8, and then 9. Let's say we just create a list called L, and then we say L dot sort, and then print, L dot sort is going to give you that help L dot sort. What's going on here? Sort key none. Okay, star is the argument. Key is none. Reverse is equal false. By default, source does reverse is equal false, a method of it, and then the reverse and help at the source list of the arguments order, return none order and return none. The sort is in place. The list itself method is a stable order of 2 element and maintained. Okay. Descending order, the reverse is through. So let me just do this sort L dot sort and print none. Okay, yeah. So basically, when you do the sort, it returns none, but actually it already puts the list back in sorted order. So let me see if you can do sort as well as assign it to another list one. That should have been the first time when I tried it on one. This is not happening, but this will just L1. L1 is get sorted like that. No, so L1 is not del L1, but L is there. So if I just say now reverse it, L dot reverse, and then use this method, now L, you see the reverse order is done. So the sort, it returns nothing but it none, but it actually does the function. So for example, when I just do the L dot sort, it is just returning nothing, like none, as if it did it, like silent mode, like sometimes when you write some command in the operating system like pwd, it does not give you any value, but it just gives you the output of the command. But if you say something that it is not returning any value, then it is running in silent mode, it's called. So this L dot sort, it runs in the silent mode, but it actually does sort it in ascending order. So if I want to do L dot what was the name of the other one? Classes, and I want to just say I see classes. Now I say classes dot sort. It just does it, and now I have to say classes in order to see this is sorted in pending order, ascending order, and with bigger first. And then if I do it in sort with reverse is equal true, then it will do exactly what this does, reverse. And then now I printed CIS 12 is going to be at the last one. So if I add another one, say, let's say I add something on the list. Let's say on the L1, I want to add a string. So I could say L dot insert, and then just add something to it, say this. And then now it is just saying, well, where do you want to insert this one? This, it inserted expected to argument. When I'm doing this one, if I want to do it just before the 5, this is 0, this is 1, now I have to say insert it on number 2. Now I printed it, just say that this is before 5. If I want to remove that one, only the, let's say there's duplicate, I want to insert, let's say, I want to insert on 3, I want to insert the number 2 also. So if I just did that one now, this one is there, number 4, 0, 1, 2, 3. 3 is also 2, and I want to just remove the 3 out. Then I could just say, remember the dir command L here, it lists all that options that you have. So if you want to just remove, is the remove command, or you could use the pop command. So if I just do a pop, help l.pop, and I want to give an index, and then right here it says, if you give an index, it will also work. So this one is number index of 3. I could say l.pop, and then put the 3 here. Now to remove the 2 there. So L does not have the 2 already on the list there. So with a pop, if you just don't specify the index, it just removes the last one. It's like LIFO, last in, first out. The last one that was in is going to be the first one that's out by default. So every time I do this, if I print this one and then I do another list, it will just show that. Then I do another one, now it's 10 is gone. If I do another one of that one, print out 9 is there. So in order to just remove each one of them, I'm going to show you a for statement to just print this thing. So if I just say L of show me all of them, right? So now I see this list has 1 through 9 in it, and then I want to append a couple of other ones on this one. So L dot, I could extend it actually. Let's just add another list in it. So I could extend it with another list of 10, 25, 20, 30, and then 40, and then 50. So let's say just I want to extend it with another list right here. And then the other list could be numbers. Now L is all that numbers plus 10, 20, 30, and 40 were added because I used the extend method. So these are built-in functions, and then it takes arguments. So if I do type L dot help, extend, and there it will just say this is a method that is built in, and then if I just try to get help of it, it says iterable, which means it could be a list, that it could be a number of tuples, a dictionary, anything that you want to add to it, you can extend it with this. And the method that I used was l.extend, and then the name of the ones that I passed on was, I passed it on as list. Where did I do it? Right here. Right here. So now my list is big. I want to print this list one item at a time. So for statement is your friend in this case. So you say for item in L, and then you could say in L, and then the entire list. So you could say everything, this L left parentheses, when I put the index, this means it start 0 and then end to the end of it. So it takes from 1 to 50. And then this colon is for the for statement syntax. So I'm going to move 4 columns here, and then I say print item. So if I just want to print the item, and then you get the list of the items there. So now if I want to just say, as you print it and then pop it. And then at the end, make it empty, right? So now I just say the same F state. Look at this L colon, it already print that list, right? So I could also get the same list from 0 colon to this. It will do the same thing. Or I could say 0 to length of L. This length of L is also giving me this. So if I say the function length of L, it returns 12 items. So from here to here, there's 12 of them. So now if I want to just say for I and L, just look at it this way, so see if I get the output here without giving the index. Print I, and it does the same thing as if, because I could get this is a list, right? So whether you put these indexes, but L of 1, L of 1 should return you this, I mean 2. L of 1 should return you 2, L of 2 should return you this, and L of 12 should return you out of range, and L of 11 is returning you 50. The reason L of 12 is returning you out of range because it is stored with indices of 0. So L of 0 is the first number. You can see that's the first number is there. So I could say L of 0, 11, that would give me the entire list up to 40. But notice that the 40 is there, but 50 is not there because this is what I'm missing. So if I just do 12, it will give me, but if I just want to print the number 12, it will say out of range. So in this case, you could say length of L, it is still gonna just say out of range because that's 12, but then if you just say -1, that would give you 50 because that's 11. So there's a number of ways you can play around with the indices, but all I'm saying is that indices start with 0, the last one is the length of it, and then when you want to get the last one, length -1, and we'll give you that one, or colon a space there, so like this, L colon. So if I get it from number 3 indices, which is the word 0, 1, 2, 3, from 5 on, from 5 to 50, I could say this, from 5 to 50 would be 12. And then if I want to do only from the number 9 and 10 only, that's the 2, then says this is 5, this is 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6, if I want to do 6 and 7, notice 6 and 7 only gave me 9. Okay, but 6 and 8 will give me also 9 and 10. So the next one that you're looking at is, if you look at the 8, just by itself, it will just be 20. So whenever you're getting the end is one number bigger. When you're printing it, one number is smaller when you're actually going from the 0. So the indices start with 0. That's why it is positional argument is 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on. So now I have the L. I want to do for I and L. I could say this time I'm going to remove them. And as I remove them, I want to print them first. I say this is in the list first. Okay. And then notice I'm using the plus authentication function, not authentication, appending function, concatenation function. I'm making those. So I'm going to convert that string into a number. But then since this one is a this, then it's going to be a problem. So let's not just convert it first. We just say L, and this is going to error out at some point. So print this, and then just do that. So notice that it says can only concatenate the string, not list, because this one is a plus symbol. So I'm going to do the same thing this time, and instead of this, I'm going to put a comma here, and then run it. Notice that it just does it for everyone on the list. It's printing that one. So I want to say, no, I want to do this. Not, rather than printing this, I want to print I, because each item should be printed. Now this time is working fine. So I said this is on the list, comma I, and then it will print it. Now I want to do the same thing here. I go for statement and I say remove it. Okay. After I did this one, I say L dot remove, and then L dot pop. Okay, and then let's say just say remove, and then inside here I want to do the remove and then I, and then do the same print statement afterward. So it is going to show another one, but this time I'm not going to do, this is the first time, I'm going to say just I, it is removed. Actually, I print the L after each times. So list dot remove X not in the list. Okay, so that way you do it right here, for statement, print the statement, and then remove. This one we are not putting that. So as you see now, it was removing it, and then I was printing the, I did not print the L, I should have printed the L, but notice the L is smaller now, right? So now let's just do the same thing with L again. For I is equal this, I is that, and then L dot remove I, and then print L after each iteration, and then exit out. Notice that this is the number 2. Originally 2 was there, and then the list is 50. So remove the first item, then it made it smaller than the list. This is this list 8 was done, and then 5, 10, now 8 is gone, and so on. It just went up to 5, 10. Now my list is 5, 10 only. So if I just run it one more time, it will do it, but I'm going to check why in the first place it did not remove all of them at once. So it does this, print I, and then remove L dot I, and then print it. Yeah. So now the list is almost only 10 in it. And then the next time we do it, it's gone completely. So the remove, it will just remove the first element. The first element is, in this case, it only, on each iteration, remove the first element. This one. If I was doing a pop, then it would do the entire thing. So let's just create, just go on the classes and say for item, and for C, I'm going to just say for C, and for classes and classes, we could just say this, everything, and then I just need to put a colon here, and then 4 spaces, then say print C. So that's printed, and then I say, as I remove it, I say classes.pop. So it removes that one from it, and then again print classes, and done. So now notice that the first time when I just had the list classes, it was much larger, right? So it took, it printed out the C, which is this class, CIS012. Then it says, okay, class.pop, it took this one out, the first one. Then it printed classes, this was left on the classes. The next time I print the class, CIS012 is coming here, then it popped this one, and this is the case. Then it prints only this one was left, and then this one was removed, and then at the same time, once it removed, it prints it, and then now it's an empty list. So classes is empty now. Now, if I want to just add to this, I could just say classes dot append, and I could just create more classes. Or even I do insert. Insert, I could just say Wahid CIS-012 there. And then let's say I put that Wahid here, and then I say insert this, classes dot insert. Yeah, so with insert, remember you have to put an index. So this is going to do it. Now I say classes. So this one is inserted. I want to change that one to remove the Wahid. So I could say classes sub-0. I could just update it. You don't have an update command like classes.update method. So you say classes dot, and then you just change it to CIS-012, and then now say classes. Classes is having those. And so if I want to add to it, then I say append. I could say go ahead, append what other values. Then I say add a class of CS018, and then CIS 040, and then add another lowercase CIS 012. So let's say I just add these ones, and then I did append. I need to close this parentheses, and then right here, let's see what other classes dot append. Yeah, so you don't need this right here. That was the problem, and then this one is single quote here. So now classes has that one, and if I just say classes dot sort, earlier we were looking at the sort, and now classes dot sort. What happened here? Not standard, not supported between instance of list and a string. Okay, so somewhere there here, this become a string rather than list. There. Oh, yeah. There's this one is a string of a list, and this one is a list of a list inside the list, because the way we inserted this, if you look at this one, it is sort is not gonna do this. So we have to remove this one to make this list only one list, or remove this one to do it, and then we support the between instance of a list. So the two lists cannot be sorted together. Excuse me. So what we do here is say classes dot remove, and then we take the first one, pop 0, actually pop remove, and then 0, 0, and then put the CIS dash 012. Let's see if that one is okay. So this one I only take one argument. Was it the pop that was taking two argument? Pop pop expected most one argument. Let me see one thing. Classes first, and then print dir of classes. I want to see the method that are available is pop and remove. So remove, I should have done it. So remove, I could do with remove here without the index there, it will do it. And then if I just say classes now, it is there. But notice it's a list of list, right? So list of list, there I need to break it into a smaller list to have only a list. So if I just say C is equal an empty list, and then say C, it is there, and then the other one has classes is to list, sorry, classes is to list. I could say for item and I for item and classes, and then all of the elements, do that, and then say we want to append to the end of it of this class called C dot append, C dot append, and we want to add I to it. Add I, and so now C is having the class exactly a copy of this one. If we just do append to it there. For each item, we created originally an empty list, and then we appended to it. Okay, so we covered enough on the list. Let's just go with the for statement and while statement more, and then write some functions as well. We're going to clear some functions. So let's just do, this is all user-defined function that we used. So our typical example of writing a clear screen, this thing, on side here, you could say define function my clear screen, and then say this is a print statement. You could say go ahead, a new line, but multiply it 80 times or 50 times. That would just definitely clear your screen. And then if I just say my clear screen, and this is defining the function. So on the function, when you write user-defined function, earlier we were using the built-in function within the list. Now we're writing a function called my clear screen. My clear screen, my CLS, is the name of the function. And def is the keyword that you use for Python. And then the left parenthesis and right parenthesis, that means this is a function. So this is how you define a function by function name. Inside here, since it is empty, it does not have any parameters yet. We can pass on parameters afterward, but at this time it is empty parameters. And what does it do? It just basically print a new line character 50 times, would multiply this one, and it just does it. So to call it, you just say my clear screen like this, and it will just does the actual clear screen for you right there. So now remember we said the function that you write it once and you can use it many times. So these are the items that are defined on my objects that I created. So if I look at the C, it has something, C2 it has something, and then classes has something, I is a value, item is something. If I just say x is equal 5, x will be there, there, and then if I just say name is equal Wahid, a string, sorry, name is equal Wahid as a string, Wahid, and then I say dir of this, now name is there. So all of these variable, when we define it, classes is there, dir of OS is there. OS is import module. So when we do this, now I can say del X. Now dir of X is no longer there. I say del name, and this these objects that or variables that I create, they stay on the system as long as you don't delete them or get out of this environment, and it will not be available. Next time you have to load that if you write it in a Python functions. So at this time, if I just say del of del of item, and then the del of L, I could just delete all of that one if I don't need them. And then C is still there. Del of C is nothing. And then my class is the function. So every time now I say my class, my clear screen, my CLS is a clear screen, a function, I could do my clear screen. Now if I do a dir, it is there. So a function, you write it once, but you can multiple time use it. And this is a very good example of clearing a screen. You could write one the name as my CLS. You can name it anything you want. So if I just say del my CLS, now dir of the dir, my CLS is not there. Now I say my CLS, it says, what do you mean? I don't need have that function. But if I just say, for example, max of this, then it will just give me S is the letter that is used there as the maximum in terms of sorting order. So if you say men, it will just say the word T in uppercase, right? So if I just say, change this one to hello Wahid, and then it just says, oh, there's a space there, a space is the minimum there, and then maximum of that one is W is there. So what it does is that max min is going to just basically be a part of a built-in function. But if I just say change this one to my max is not going to be there, right? So in order to say I will write my own functions to do that one, or I say length of Wahid Lutfi, let's say if I just want to get the length of this string, 11 characters, then I could just do that length. But if I just use this one, say my length, for this to generate, it says this is not defined. So now I'm going to define a function, say def my length, and then just do the same thing, okay? And then here I could just say I'm going to take a string, and that string could be string 1, whatever I pass it on. Okay, so let's make it simpler, S1 for string 1. And then I say define that function. It takes one argument, and then it just says return. And then in here, I say length of, since length is already defined, I don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's already there, length of is 1. So whatever the argument is passed, I'm just going to return the length of it. So look at this length of this is going to just return that length of Python is a cool programming language. So I do this one length of it. Now if I just change that one to my length, it just still does the same thing. If I just change this wording to say Python is functional programming, programming as well as object-oriented programming. So if you do that one, my length is still return that one. If you get the length of it, it is still there. So basically, you could reuse some of the functions if it is not there, but you can just say, well, the built-in function is there. I'm going to reuse it and call it my linked and there. So why do you have to define that one? It's already defined. Or you don't need to do that, the same thing. I was just giving an example to say something that when you write the parameters, but if you write, for example, a function to add up two numbers, right? So 2 plus 2 plus 3 is 5, and then print 2 times 3 is also going to give you 6. So if I just do this and then want to just say these numbers could be anything and the value changes. So what if I just want to do similar to that, and then I could write a function to return the sum or multiplication of two numbers. So you could say def sum or my sum, it doesn't matter what you call it, my sum, and it takes two arguments, num1 and num2. So if I just don't say anything, by default it says those are my two parameters, num1 and num2. And then in Python, I'll explain on Wednesday more on parameters, when they use it by keyword, when they use it by position, and how do you use it, and why do you use it, how do you use default values. All of that options, we will expand on it, because this week is dedicated for Python function programming, as well as for statement, while statement, and everything else, less than other ones. So if I do def my sum num1, num2, and then right here I just say return num1 plus num2. As simple as that. This is just returning that function. So now instead of saying print 5 times let's say 5 is 25, get that one. I could assign that one to a variable, say x is equal this, and then print x is 25, or I could just say, let's just do this, my sum, and then since it's an addition, I just do 5 plus 5, that's 10. So now x is equal 10. And then if I just change that one to 15, and then do x is equal, and then print x is equal 20. So the answer is accurate. But what if I just only define one value? Then it says, oh, that my sum is doing it, it requires two arguments. And on num1 and num2, you missed the num2. So the way I would define that function, if I say def my sum, you could say num1 comma num2 is equal, let's say by default I want to do num2 as 5. When you default put a default value, it's automatically understand that, okay, in this case, the user could be given the value of num2 as different value. If it eliminated, doesn't provide it, then the default value is 5. So return num1 plus num2. And then now if I just say the same thing, run it this way, and then it's going to just return 10, because num2 is by default 5. It did not complain, so now x is equal 10. And if I just say, okay, 5 plus 12, 5 comma 12, that would be 17. It just does not use the value of 5, because I provided that one. And if I just say by keyword variable, say num1 num1 is equal 5, and num2 is equal 12, that could also work. So the same thing, because I'm giving a specified numbers. But let's say I just do, since I position the argument on the second value to be position parameters for it, if I just do this one to say num2 and this one to be num1, then I run it, it is still the same thing because I use the keyword. This one I pass on the keyword values and there. Now watch if I just change this one to only one argument, it is still gonna work. And then if I just do this one with this argument as the equal that, that's not gonna work. The reason that doesn't work is because the num1 is defined as a keyword by position, but num2 is a default value. So num2, if I just change this one, it doesn't know what num1 is. Num1 has to be given a value. As long as I gave a value of num1, here num1 is equal 11, num2 is already have a default value. Then it will just do the calculation for default value. But if I just say comma 11, there it's going to be a problem because num2, once you just use the reserve word here, you cannot use this one as empty there. So now you have to do num2 is equal and then print it that way. And if you just did this way, that is not going to work either because num1 is not a value for it. So either you have to put both of the parameters here to do it, or if you just did it, you only eliminate the default values. Like, for example, like this scenario here. Num1 is 11, num2 is already 5, so x is going to be 16. So if I just write another function to do multiplication, look at this, how easy it is. My multiply function, it's the same, num1, num2, and then you could get multiple number 3. So if you want to just pass on multiple numbers, and then all of them could be there, all you have to do is say return num1 times num2 times num3, right? So this is going to just do the same thing, but in this case, I would say when you call it, this is defining it. I just defined that one, and then returning is a function has to return something. So you're doing it, and then you're defining it here. So if I just say def my multiply, and I say 2 times 2 times 2, and that is 8. Multiply my multiply. Let's see what is happening. Because my mult def 1 second. Num1 name num1 is not defined. Oh, okay. The naming that I used on the function, I use nu here, and then I put num1. You can't do that. It's just a typo. M is missing. So I'm gonna do that one again by saying def and just put this one m for num1, and then whatever variable you used, you can use that one. Now I just finish it, and then this is very, very important. When you do the def, automatically you're gonna get 4 lines of indentation after this column. So if you have 10 lines after this, the last line, when you don't put anything, the last line is saying that end this function name. The definition of this function ends right here because it's no more indentation. So now I'm having the prompt back, and then I say my multiply, and then 2 comma 2 comma 2, that is going to be 8. And then here I change that one as 20, and so on. I mean, you could just change the numbers, multiply. But notice that as I change the numbers, I cannot put 2 arguments. I cannot put 1 argument. I cannot put 5 arguments or 4 arguments, because those ones, you see that is 4 were given when the arguments were taken, 3 of them. So if I just define the same function right here, and then I say num1 is equal 5, num2 is equal 2, and num3 is equal 10. Let's say by default I do this one, and then I just say return those multiplication of those. Now notice it has the 3 dots, meaning that I can come and say something here. But I don't want to say something here. I want to finish the function. I'm done with it. Now I call it with the 3 arguments. It works. If I just do change nothing, it still works, because what was default values is the default value was 5 times 2 times 10, right? That is 100. So 2 times 5 is 2 times 10 is 20, and 5 times 20 is 100, or 2 times 5 is 10, and 10 times 10 is 100. So disregard how you do it, multiplication, it will get end up there. So if I just say one argument and say num1 is equal 1, then it says, okay, 1 times 2 times 10 is 20 there. Therefore, if I just say 1 comma 2 will also give me 20, and 1 comma 2 comma 10 also give me 20. But if I just say 1 comma let's say 4, 4 times 10 is going to be just 40, so it's automatically there. If I miss the value of this one, then it says, okay, 5 is already taken for the first one, and then the other 2 or those values, and it's going to just say multiply it that way and gets the values for it. I could also say num1 is equal 11, num2 is equal 10, num2 is equal 10, let's say, just to make it simple. Num2 is equal keyword argument repeated. So num1 and num2, oh, num3, this is num3, not num2. And then that would just give you the value. So functions are pretty cool. You write it once and then you could use it, and you could pass in different argument to it. So let's say my clear screen, if it is there, I could just do that one. It is not there, so I could say define my clear screen. This time I'm going to just type in as clear screen. You don't have to give it the exact name that I want to do. And then as long as that is not a built-in function, you can reuse the name. So my clear screen, if I just say for I in range, and then in this range, I could say range of, let's say 50 of them, and then print. Notice the indentation, since I use the for statement, I have to move 4 columns to the right of that in order to do that. So print this, and then now say clear screen, it just clears my screen 50 times. And we did that one, so let's just see what we can do on the command line here. If I just exit out of here, and I look at the other option here we have is with the while statement. So with the while statement, I'm gonna go to pasadena.edu and then look at the CIS 012 and summer. So this course, I have lectures, and then inside here, CD to lecture, and then while example. So if you look at the while example, for example, while statement, the way it works, you just say basically some condition is predetermined, is true, and then while that condition is true, you execute something and then you get out when it is false. That's what while statement does. So if I go here on the Python and say, for example, x is equal 1, and you say while x is less than 10, and since it's less than 10, that becomes true, and then I say print x, right? So I say print x, and then say x is plus equal 1. That means x plus 1. X is equal x plus 1. And this is a shorter version of that. So now it prints it, and then the while statement is terminating. So if I change the x, now if I print the x is equal 10. If I just say x is equal 10, and then this time I run it, since x is equal 10, x is not less than 10, and then I say print x, and then say x plus 1, it will just not print, it will print, this will not get executed because x is already 10. 10 is not less than 10, so it just did not execute anything. And if I just change this statement now to less or equal, that condition to say less or equal, and then there's a number of comparison operators we go throughout the semester, and at some point I'm going to just put it on the list of options. But if you look at the course the readings of these chapters or videos, or look at my videos, we cover these one as we go. And then, so this was saying less or equal. If I want to say greater or equal, this is how I use. If it's say not equal, I use this. These are comparison operator. If it's equal, that's meaning the same. If it's equal, is this is x is equal this. If it's x is less or equal, in this case, I want to do, if I want to do greater or equal, I do it this way. So since I want to do less or equal, I do it this way. And then I say if it is there, then do the print statement, and then print x plus 1. So this one is going to be equal 10, but unfortunately, this will never end at this time, because x is equal 10. Actually, sorry, while x is less or equal than 10. So at the first time, it is going to be equal. So it prints it, then it increments it, and it does it after that. It already printed. So print x is equal 10, and then now x is 11, it just terminates that loop. So if I want to change this one to say x is equal less than 100, and then do the same thing, print x is equal, even though it's 11, it starts with 11, and then it goes incremented. So 11 to 100 is going to be printed. And then if I just want to go down, let's say x is now is 111, 101. If I just say x is equal 101, so say while x is greater than or equal to 0, while x is greater than 0, right? Greater than 0, or I could even cover the 0, say greater or equal to 0, do, and then say print x. This time, in order to make that function return true, false at some point, I just have to say decrement x from 101 go all the way to 0. So x minus equal 1. That would just return that one. And then here I could say if x is equal, this is equal 0, and then say something like 2, 3, 4, and then say print if x is equal 0, let's say all done. And it is doing all done disregard to whether it was 7 or 8 or 3. So there's some logic or semantic of it that needs to be corrected. Let me just see. Okay. So I'm just going to go back, exit out of here, and then show you from the command line, because this way I could show you the actual script rather than write it in the interactive. So here you have, I already wrote this one, while example1.python. I want to show you this. So it's a number of ways to do this. So let's see if I could open this one in the idle. Or actually PyCharm, because I wanted to cover PyCharm also. So let me just open PyCharm. I go here and say PyCharm. So I'm just running PyCharm right now. The version that I installed is the community version, which is free. So let's see if it comes up faster enough. Then is it coming? PyCharm. I thought I click on it, but I'll just open it again. I must have not done. So here, this one, there's an example of that while statement that you could say, if I is equal 10, greater than 0, then counting down, and then at some point it says left off when it's 0. Why is PyCharm not opening? Let me see what's going on here. PyCharm should be open by now. Okay, PyCharm. I'm gonna double click here. Okay, so as I was going through the confers, I was going to check on the task manager to see if PyCharm is running. It sees that the PyCharm is here, and then it was coming here. So it is already open. I'm going to just minimize this. If I click on the open here, this is the IDE, Integrated Development Environment of Python. It is more than just an idle. Idle was integrated development and learning environment. This one is integrated development environment, which means it's and not that only you learn plus you code, and there's so much functionality and tools and resources available to you while you're inside the PyCharm. It is written by JetBrains. And then if you just go here under this directory, like I was on the command line, Wahid Pasadena CIS Summer 2020 lectures. So I need to go open that project. And I'm looking at pasadena.edu here, and then CIS Summer here, CIS 012, and then looking at the lecture, and then look at the while example. So this is nice interface in terms of the look and feel, and it's much easy to edit and much easy to run it, compile it. The entire interactivity is open. You open a project, inside of your project, you write a bunch of Python scripts or Python programs, and then you load modules with it. You could write function with it and everything. And every time you go to PyCharm, it gives you a set of shortcut keys to learn and practice with it for your own sake. It is good if you're doing a PyCharm coding there. So this is an example of a program that I wrote on for the while statement, and that just demonstrates how to use the while statement. In order to do that one, I'm going to show you like a couple of things. For example, here I'm doing import math as M. So with import the statement, you could just say import math as M, saying that later on I'm going to use the module math as M dot pow, M dot square root, M dot sine, M dot cosine, M dot anything. The method, as long as that method is available, I can use it. So as you can see here, I'm using M dot power function, 2 comma X. X is coming from here within the while statement. So let me just comment out starting these lines. I want to show you a couple of commands at a time. So if I just do this, okay, and then these lines could be commented for now. These are blank space for no reason. Oops, I deleted so much. Printf, left off, and then close this one, and then okay, so I'm going to do this and say 3 double quotes, and now I have done that. The Python program is gonna just use this section of the code to run it. These other ones I commented out between these three parentheses that I put, and then closing it at the end. I just make them all comments, so it will not run there. You can also put a pound to comment something. So print this statement is going to print that one. Now, if I just want to print it and run it, there's a run here. I could just say run and then click on run. Notice the menu of this has so much configuration and options there. I will go through them, but let me show you the while statement first. And then at some point I will explain how the IDE works in here, and what are the advantage of it, how we download the PyCharm and how to use it. All of that could be coming in subsequent classes as well. But at this time, I want you to say, why am I going to use this one? What are the advantage? So here's an easy way. You open the project, you just run it. You run it by clicking on the run. Now it gets compiled, and then it says, do you want to run this while example one? Yes, I want to run this one. And go ahead, run it for me. And then it's going to run it. By default, it saves it automatically for you, whatever changes. So at this time, it gave me the output here on this the screen here. And let me just say, so this one, if I look at the output commands, which is right here on the console, there's other things on the terminal. I could get a virtual environment that I could see my environment. But these ones, like I said, I will show you next time when we are in the that session to learn that part. I just don't want to overwhelm you with all this information of learning PyCharm while I'm teaching you Python syntax. So I want you to understand the Python syntax. So if you look at the run output here, and this one, it just basically saying that, let me minimize it a little bit. So up to right here. It just says, in this example, we use the math.pow, and then this is the print statement that does it, and the import already loaded. X is set to a variable 0, and then while x is less than 10, it does this 2 to the power of. So this one is printing the syntax that I want to, but notice I'm using the concatenation plus symbol. And since X is a variable and the number, I could not do it unless I convert it to a string, because print this string has to append it with the other string. You cannot just say add a string with a number. So that is not going to work. That's why I convert the string there. And the same thing I hear. When I get the math.pow of to the power of x, to the power of 1, to the power of 0 is 1, to the power of 1 is 2. So you're just getting all the way to the 10. And then when you test this one, if you just do this one to 5 digit, it doesn't matter. You just run it again and it's a shorter one. Notice that Python script is going to do based on what you value you return. Here, if I just do it up to 55, which is much larger numbers, to the power of 55 is going to get, imagine if I do to the power of 55 millions. So this, the number, if I just add this one, Python is fast, but this number, and then sometimes your system could just have problems with it. Look at this, to the power of 550 is this large number. That's like almost like 2-3 lines of numbers. So if I just change one other digit there, then it's going to just go to pages and pages of information for that one. And then notice on line 7, where it was doing it with this number to the power of that one, it says there's a problem here because math range error. You overflow the numbers of calculation that was there. To the power of that number, it's really, really huge. And if you see the way it works, after to the power of 1023, then after that one, it could not do it. So 1024 already created a problem. And if I just do 1023, let's say it 1023, it might work up to that point, but 1024 I have out, yeah, well, 1023 I have okay, but 1024 it runs out of overflow for the constant, the math functions that does the calculation. So at 1024 right away it does this. So it never gets to 1025 or so on. And then because that number is so huge, look at how large of a number it is. That number doesn't exist in our world nowadays. Infinity is a really huge number. It doesn't have an end, but you can't print infinity. There's infinity is not a number. So it's just an imaginary number that is minus infinity or plus infinity is not defined. Okay, so at this time, let me just do this one back to 10 and run it and get a nice easy output for the power functions. So if I just do that and then this is the math function. So I'm going to just change this one here. We already did test this one, and let's just do go from here, and then now we check this section of the code. So that print this one, example operator, a string 2 times this. Let me just see what I'm doing here. This one is that 2 to the power of this is operator, and I'm gonna try starting here. So this is statement while could go infinite loops, but we can break it out of the FID using break statement. So in this example, I'm showing you how to do break a statement as well. Break a statement as well. Break is going to allow you to get out of the while statement. In this case, x is equal 100. So I say if x is equal 100, print the square root of the number, and then the value was a string this, and then take the 10 out of it, and if x is equal 10 at some point, every time I take out 10, and then just when x is equal 10, then just break out of the loop. And then the value of x should be printed at that time. So this one, I'm gonna stop here. So this code is going to be running from here to here. Let's just run this. Okay, so now I go back here. Notice that the square root of number 100 was 10, and then the next value was 90, 70, all the way I counted till 10. When the number was equal 10, I break out of the loop. So now if you look at this syntax here, all I'm doing is just saying that originally start with 100, x is at 100, while true, which is always the case, true is always the case, right? Then do if x is equal 100 to then take the square root of it. The first time is 100, so it prints out the square root of 100 is equal 10. This statement, it returns the square root of it. Then come into the else part. Since this one is after this statement, the next time it comes while true, it goes to the 90. Then it says the value of x was, and it's going to print 90. Then the second time it does the x, it's not 100, it's 80, then it prints 80. And it keep looping to the else part until it reaches to 10. When it reaches to 10, it reads that minus 10, x is minus 10 every time we decrement it. Then when x is equal 10, it breaks out of it. And then it just prints the last x value, saying that this was the value of x when it got. So you get the idea that when you're doing an infinite loop, if you don't somehow make that statement false, even though it is not false, you could still check for some condition. And when that condition is met, then you either break out of the loop or exit. They depend on what you want to do with your code. If you want to get out of the break statement and then print out the value, this is how you do it. If you want to exit and terminate the program, you just type in exit instead of break. So this is covered. Let me just take this line out here and go back here. Right here, take this one out. And now this one is the last one that is an example here. So here, somehow I have some statement that I need to terminate right here. So this is the last 3 line. And then here, this is good now. So I is equal 10, while I is equal, let me just reduce this. Okay, all right there. So I is equal 10, while I is greater than 0, print I. And then once I is at this time is that, then do if I is equal 0, then print it. So it is decrementing the I until I becomes 0. And when I is equal 0, it prints a message of left off. So notice that if I run this one, it's going to print that information. And because I'm doing a new line characters here, it is just giving me empty lines after empty lines, so the output is more. I'm removing that new line character here, and then the last one left off is fine. I just leave one line there. So I'm going to run that one now. It's a shorter version of the same thing. And then you can see it starts from 10. going down to 9, 8, and 0. And when it becomes 1, after 1, if I just print out here the left off, and then I just say print I is 0 at this time. So let me just move this one a little bit up. And this one, I move it up here. So this part of the code, here's the code, and here's the output. So if I run the output new, now it should say 0 at the end of liftoff because I printed that one out. So it was up to that point of 10, and to start with 10, and really nice, cool. It just does it, and the indentation is very important. If I just put the indentation, this one here, and then I run it, it's gonna just be the same at this time, but because I'm just doing this statement, and when this statement is done, I'm not doing any calculation. Okay, I could also put this statement here and then run it, it's fine. But I could not put it right here. Even with right here, I might be able to do it because I'm ending the while statement. Let me just try it. See if the indentation makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense. But here I could do it. The right way to do it is just say print this, and then the most right way is doing this. Since I'm exiting out of the while statement, at the end, I want to print out the print statement, then I just run it that way. At this time, if I just say print all done. So these are, when my while statement already finished, I could do this. It's not a problem. And then print I equal 0, that one. And then if I put that one above it, this doesn't matter. But notice on the indentation, if I just have this one column, space here, and do only like 3 of them, 1, 2, 3. This one will break it. It will. This is saying the indentation of that print statement is not valid. Somehow it still allow it, maybe because it's taking 4 spaces. But notice this thing is coming here as edit and injection, ignore error, like this. Okay, so that one is there, but I will just do 1, 2. If I do this, and 3 was allowing it, yeah, 3 was allowing it. 2 for sure is not, 0 for sure it's not gonna work because that print statement is there. 1 is not gonna work. It should be 4 spaces, but somehow it after this if statement, even 1 character's PyCharm is merciful on that one. That's not right. So it just supposed to be 4 spaces. If I do it 1 space here, that's not gonna work. It's syntax error because the while statement, the if statement is just failing there, or the left off statement. So I have to do the right number of space. 1, 2, 3, 4, right there. This is the right amount, and it should work this way. And it does work. So it's 9:23 right now. I've been talking for a while now, since we started the class. I'm going to do a roll calls, and then let's see, 12, 11 people are on. Let me do a roll calls, but please make sure you come back after the break because I'm going to do another roll calls to make sure that you continue to work on the labs. And if you are participating in this much, it's good that you also participate on the labs activity. And some of you had questions. You're welcome to ask question if you want to share with your friends whatever issues that you had, I can address it after this. But that part will not be recorded because of your privacy. I will just end the recording at this time. And when I do the roll calls, obviously, well, I don't want it to be recorded either. We don't need to record that part. So let me stop the recording first, and then I'll do the roll calls after this. Stop recording.